Welcome to The Alignment Show, featuring conversations with folks who have taken steps to identify their highest values and align their lives around them. Time on this earth is not unlimited, and you may be seeking to make sure you spend your time on things that matter to you. These conversations will encourage you and support you in doing so. Now, let's meet this week's guest on The Alignment Show. And a good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time it might be in your part of the world. Welcome once again to The Alignment Show. My name is Don King, and I'm your host. And regular watchers, folks on audio can't tell this, but folks who watch us regularly will note that I'm on a different background than usual. One of the skill sets that we teach in teaching effective communication is the adaptability aspect. Well, we're having to adapt today because you may know I have a severely disabled daughter. She requires 24/7 nursing. And Murphy's Law being what it is, her nurse had to call out sick today. So if in the middle of our broadcast I have to go respond to one of her alarms, that's what's going on. But we're coming to you from Hannah's bedroom today. Well, that's just the way it is. And life throws curveballs at us all the time. This is a good time for me to share with you an update on the writing stuff that goes on in my life. A lot of you know about The Way the 3-Year-Old Why. We have another book that will be coming out in, 2 or 3 weeks, I believe. And I'm looking for the link here to where I can share that. I'm going to put it on the ticker down below for those who can see it visually. And for the audio listeners, donking.com, that's DONNKING.com/medium well first. That will get you to the first scene of the next book in the Sparklight Chronicles, Medium Well. It's a follow-up to The Way the 3-Year-Old Why. Another business parable, this one focused on learning to identify your strengths and in some ways accepting those. So that will be coming out in just 2 or 3 weeks. Little uncertain as to exactly when, but as our daughter has taught us, make your plans, but hold them lightly. They're going to change. Now, one of the things that I really love about doing what we do here at the Alignment Show is to be able to have conversations with people who are just amazing individuals. I said in the setup for this episode that I was looking forward to this conversation. Anna I worked on it, Anna, and I should be able to say it. Kantzavelos. She's laughing over there in the green room. She was one of the first people, I think she was the first person after Bob Burg and Kathy Tagenel that I met at the Go Giver Success Alliance. Fantastic first conversation. And just in getting to know her over the last couple of years, she just continues to impress me as an exemplar of this idea of identifying your values and bringing your life into congruence with those. She continually does this. And so we're happy to have a conversation today with Anna Kantzavelos. Did I say it right, Anna?
So good. Well, I have to say, I was even when reading The Way of the 3-Year-Old Why, when you had like the Greek names and that, I was like, oh, wow, like you're well versed. So yes, you did it wonderfully.
Well, and it happens that at one point in my life, I had studied some Koine Greek, the language of the New Testament.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that the pronunciation is different, but I learned to kind of get around those syllables a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think I figured out the pronunciation soon after you and I met. But then here we are today. I'm sleep deprived for whatever it's worth.
It's not an easy last name by any means. I joke that our kids learn their alphabet like from the womb because they just had to. Yeah. No, you're fine. I was like, at least my first name is easy.
Yeah, exactly. And there are in the Greek language, there are letters that we don't have in standard English and vice versa, I guess.
That's impressive that you learned some of that because it's a very difficult language to learn, but very meaningful
I can't say that I
Voices,
learned the language, but I came to
of course.
appreciate its nuances. I mean, it's just an
Mhm.
amazing
Yeah.
language. So, and I know culture and all that kind of thing has figured in greatly into
Mhm.
the life of you and Tony, your husband.
Yeah.
Just for a little bit of background here, Anna and Tony own Nora Apothecary, and I'm going to go ahead and put their website up on the crawl here for those of you listening. Nora, Nora, apothecary. That's another word that is a little
And
unusual, but
Twister. Yeah.
yeah. And there's I'm going to jump right into it here, Anna, about because we're always looking at origin stories here, and
Which I love. Yeah.
quick background on you. You come from I would say a healthcare background.
Hmm.
I was looking at the material that you sent me. Just why don't you just tell us a little bit about your medical background before we
Sure.
get to the pharmacy thing?
Well, first, I just want to say thank you for having me on. You are one of my favorite people, truly.
Oh,
And I mean that sincerely from the bottom of my heart. Um,
thank
and
you
I
so
just
much.
love how God, the universe brought us together. Um, and as I was sharing with you in the green room, I mean, you have such a talent for um, writing, but it's the emotion behind the writing. When I was reading The Way of the 3-Year-Old Why, it was just beautiful. I could hear you telling the story, and but there's such a human, beautiful aspect to the way that you communicate, and you're all about communication, and you are definitely gifted in that. So
Thank you.
thank you for having me on, and congratulations on 1 year of your podcast. That's so exciting. That is just
Yeah.
one
Hadn't
year
really
already.
realized that until just recently.
Yeah,
Episode 51, which,
yeah.
I'm trying to remember to say the episode numbers when we start. And I can't, after 51 episodes, I still can't remember that.
They all kind of run together, but one
Yeah,
year,
but
that's
but we
God help you.
missed one episode in there somewhere. So this is literally the 1 year anniversary. I think it's got to
Congratulations.
be. If we missed an anyway, I'm babbling.
Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
amazing. And I think getting past that 1 year hump is just a beautiful thing, and keep going. You touch so many lives, and yeah. And like I say on my LinkedIn post, you have a voice like butter. I think we could all listen to you forever.
Oh,
Knowing that
thank
you
you.
had been in radio before, that makes much sense. So yeah, my professional background is in healthcare. I grew up wanting to be a pediatrician because I love children, but especially those who are more vulnerable than most. I always thought I would be a pediatrician and go to Africa and treat children there, or the Operation Smile, where they go and help people with cleft palates and things like that. So that was always my heart, was helping those in need, and specifically children. So I always thought I was going to be a pediatrician. Wasn't really one of those kids who was confused or not sure what they were going to do in life. But then when I got to college and university, I knew how important having a family was to me, and I knew I wanted to hopefully be able to stay home with kids once I got married and had kids. And so my dad was actually the one who suggested becoming a physician assistant. So, and I was already in a college that offered that program. So I changed from biology minor, going to pre-med, into being a PA. So graduated doing that. I've always had just in the human body, how God created us each uniquely. We will never exist again. And how everything in our body just works in beautiful harmony. That was just such, it just always captivated me. So, but really in the uniqueness of each individual and seeing each person as a unique human being was another part of that. So loved it, practiced for a number of years in a hospital. And then we had 3 children under the age of 3.
Oh, wow.
And that was fun. I don't
Interesting use of the word fun.
It was fun. I will say, making sure we all just got through the day, and, we were all fed and alive and well was a win. So, but it was great. It was wonderful. Those were wonderful years. And so then with that, coming full circle into the pharmacy, I stayed home with the kids. Tony's a pharmacist. He was working nights, and came home one day and suggested we invented a product. And the reason for that was he had an eye condition, and he honestly couldn't see for about a week. It's uveitis. And And we went to an ophthalmologist who turned out, went to our church, and he had to wipe, his eye was tearing a lot. And we asked, like, what could we do? It's very irritated. He's tearing a lot. And he said, really just, baby shampoo or a Kleenex, or there's one product over the counter that you can use. And after going through that experience, he said, why don't we invent something better than the only product that's available on the market? And so in our stupor of sleepless nights and it was fun. It was crazy. We invented a product together, and it was a complete blessing. I will say those were very difficult years because the children were so young. We don't have family here. My dad was the only family I had here. And unfortunately, he was sick with cancer at the time. But we didn't really have a good support system. But at the same time, Tony and I have always been a good team. And so long story short, we invented that product. And through that, the reason why I say it was a blessing was not the company itself and the product. It was God was preparing us to work together in business, because we had known each other we've been together 25 years, gone through very difficult times together, not ourselves, but just health issues with both of our sides of our families. The difficulty of having 3 children under the age of 3 and relying on each other. But business was very different. I don't think we realized how different we were in business. And so inventing that product and starting that company prepared us for then owning the pharmacy. So from that product, we got to meet the owner of the pharmacy. He was our first paid customer. He gave us our first paycheck, and I have a picture of that paycheck, $99. Uh-huh. And we got to know him over the next couple of years. He did sterile ophthalmic drops and said this would be a great add-on to our lineup. And so after a couple of years, he came and he said, so the product we invented, I don't know if I mentioned that, was just a cleansing wipe. It's a cleansing eyelid wipe, natural, made in the US, tear off, go. And, if you have eye infections, eye surgeries, they need to clean your eye continuously, blepharitis, pink eye, those types of things. And so he added it onto his portfolio of things he could offer his patients. And after a couple of years, he came to us and said, I've owned this pharmacy for over 40 years, and people have been interested in purchasing it, but I haven't found the right people that I feel would carry on its legacy until I met the two of you. And I want to see if you're interested in purchasing it. And that, I get goosebumps still after all these years saying that. And so it was a huge decision and blessing. And we've owned it now for 9 years. And truly, it's amazing when you look back, when you say origin stories, looking back on how life prepares you for where you're going, and you may not necessarily understand it at the time. So it's been wonderful. So Tony does the medical side, and now I do the business side, which I love. And it's taught. I've loved being able to bring our children along in the journey of it as well, and teach them. I always say there's so much overlap between business, entrepreneurship, and family. Just teaching them that live into your strengths, use it for service, work with those who have different talents than you do, try things and fail, learn. Mm-hmm. There's so many lessons in business and family that overlap. So it's been a great journey.
Excellent. I have so many questions. First, a minor one. We have, because of our disabled daughter, we have more of a connection with the medical community maybe than the average patient. I don't want to say consumer, but you know what I mean here. And I'm not completely sure what's the difference or what's the path for a physician's assistant versus a nurse practitioner. Mm-hmm. From my perspective on this side of the stethoscope, they seem to have equal powers, and able to write prescriptions. Mm-hmm. and that sort of thing. So what is the difference there? Just real briefly, because it's not the main part of our...
Great question. Very similar. Nurse practitioners, you go through nursing school and you take that path to become a nurse practitioner. PA, you can kind of just do that right out of the bat, in university or college. And nurse practitioners tend to need to specialize in a certain field of medicine. They kind of need to pick a path, pediatrics or internal medicine or whatever the case might be. PAs can change throughout their career. They can start out in, surgery and then move to GI and then move to, cardiology. They can change throughout their career. hopefully things will maybe change, but nurse practitioners can really start practices individually. They don't need a supervising physician. Physician assistants do. You need to practice under a physician. So for the most part, I mean, that's a general.
Right.
Yeah, but really they do a lot of the same work. Yeah.
Is that the kind of thing that varies state to state, or is it a federal state? Okay. And like I said, that's not the main part of our conversation.
No, it's a great question, though.
Because I think, did I read somewhere that you maintain your license? You're still keeping that up. So I find it fascinating, and I want to come back to talking about the pharmacy itself here in just a minute. But I find it fascinating that you and Tony both have a medical background, you a physician's assistant, but you're doing the business part. And I don't know much about medical school, but I'm fairly certain that they don't do a lot of teaching about business.
Yeah.
So how did it fall to you to be the business person?
Necessity. My dad used to say necessity is the mother of invention. But again, it's amazing that God prepares you for things. So you don't realize it at the time that, kind of the gifts that each individual has, or that you have that might need to be pulled up. I am more of a big picture thinker, problem solver, possibilities finder. And I have been throughout our relationship, and he's more of the, wait, did we miss something? Is this done? He's more of the detailed. And so in that way we work very well together. I didn't realize it. I mean, I think I realized it throughout my life, not in a professional sense, but in my personal life, I was very much like that. And now having the business, I've been able to extend that into the business. So
that makes a lot of sense. And I
always
gotta be
finding a way
honest,
forward, seeing how we can improve. Our customer service, how we serve our employees.
I was thinking the same thing that Jeff West has said here. I'm going to put it on the screen. He's, y'all been together 20. I can hear Jeff in his Georgia / Texas accent. Yeah. Y'all have been together for 25 years. Started dating in daycare, did you? Maybe kindergarten. It really is astounding. And 25 years together, 9 years in business, which is very different from the medical. When the former owner offered to sell Nora Apothecary to you, did you guys have any hesitation because of the business aspect? Does that make sense? I mean, you knew the medical stuff. He had been working in pharmacy. You had been working in hospital. So how much of a hesitation, or maybe even awareness, did you even have an idea what you were getting into?
Thankfully, we took it slow. So, and again, because we had invented that product and had that for a few years ahead of time, we got a business sense through that. And his parents had owned a dry cleaners. So he grew up very much service oriented and somewhat aware of, had that business sense behind him. And so, but we did take it slow in that he started working there for about a year to kind of just see, the operations. And then the owner stayed on for probably about 6 months or so after we purchased it. So it was just gradual. We didn't jump into it. It was a big financial risk, if you will. But like anything in life, it's a calculated, educated risk that you take. And we believed in ourselves. I think we believed that we could work together and that we could, we could move it forward and serve the community. Yeah.
Did you have a plan B just in case, or was it all the eggs are in this basket? Yeah.
It was a big basket. So we were scrounging for eggs to fill that basket, and we did. And but I think too, the fact that it was already a functioning business was helpful. It didn't really have a website. It didn't have much to it. It hadn't been updated a long time. But having started your own business from scratch, this was almost easier, I would say, because you already have that jump start. Now, there were a lot of things that needed to be fixed, but you weren't starting from ground zero.
Yeah. And you all have done quite a bit of updating here. We've got a LinkedIn user because it's not, whoever this is has not gone through the rigmarole to get identified to Restream, which is what we use for our software here. But LinkedIn user says, love the lesson Anna mentioned earlier. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. The way I often put it is you're either earning or learning, and it's great when you can do both. And
Love that.
LinkedIn user says that's my message to my young daughters.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
taking calculated risk. It's not just jumping in willy nilly. On
No,
the other hand, it is a risk,
that's a risk.
and so there's a great lesson there. Now, you all are still, 9 years in. You have made some significant updates to the business. And again, just a quick little factoid. How old were the kids when you guys bought the pharmacy?
They were 5 and 8. So we've got now he's 17 and 14-year-old twins. At the time they were 8, 5, and 5.
Okay. So you had as you said, three that were under
Yeah.
three.
When we invented the product, yeah.
Yeah. All of that going on.
Yeah.
And still, family being one of those primary values for you, and
It is.
owning a business though takes a lot of time, takes a
Mhm.
lot of energy. Do you have any advice for anybody on how do you balance all of that? How do you manage a family business and still take care of family, if that makes sense?
That's a wonderful question. Actually, now that I think the answer is in your question, because it is a family business. It's all integrated. There wasn't a separation between, um, I'm doing this or Tony's doing this, because we were doing that together.
Mhm.
Our children were already sort of integrated into that. And really it was about bringing them along the journey. I'd love to hear in 10, 20 years their experiences from those years and now. Because now, I'm in, my mid 40s, and I still reflect, especially now, back on how our childhood shapes us. And so I'm sure that they're going to have lessons from those years that, will shape them in some way in their lives. But because it was a family business, they were already part of it. So they heard the conversations that we were having, and difficulties we're going through, and wins we were having. And, my hope is that shaped them positively in some way, if not no one ever has it figured out. So if you want to do anything in life that you love, you'll find a way.
Yeah.
But it can be messy. It can be messy along the way. But it really was about taking time just with them and focusing on them, and not trying to bring too much of the business talk at home, and more talking. Thankfully, they were then going to school. They had just started, kindergarten. So we were able to do more while they were at school versus, when we were inventing the product, they were home and we were starting the business. So that really was integrated at that time. But with a pharmacy, it was much easier.
Oh yeah. And I'm thinking about Tony having grown up with a dry cleaner family,
Mhm.
seeing business from the inside. It's going to shape your kids.
It is. Yes.
So that will indeed be an interesting process to watch.
Yeah.
Now, the pharmacy itself. Let's go down this path a bit.
Yeah.
It is, and technical term, it is a compounding pharmacy,
Mhm.
right? And so, explain to folks, what does that mean versus maybe a chain pharmacy?
Yeah, I didn't know what that was either, really, before. And so, interestingly, the pharmacy's been there. It's now one of the busiest streets in Indianapolis on 86th Street, but it used to be a house. And having grown up in Indianapolis, well, it was a house that then the gentleman sold to his friend who was a pharmacist, and then he turned it into what it is now in 1962. But I used to drive down 86th Street all the time. I lived very close to there, and I knew it was something medical, but you always wonder, like, what are they doing there? Like, what are they mixing? What is it? But I was in high school at the time and didn't really think much of it. But compounding is literally where, you mentioned the word apothecary, which is interestingly a Greek word, apotheki, which is more of a storage room, but it's hand creating medications for each patient, like the true essence of pharmacy. Before we came into kind of industrial and one size fits all pills, and everybody takes one of 4 different doses, and so really we hand make every prescription for every patient. It's very personalized. So the quantities of the medications are specific to each patient. So if you think more easily in terms of hormone replacement therapy, sterile eye drops, antibiotics, without additives, preservatives. For some children, they're very sensitive to those things. So it really is the art of creating medicine for each person.
How does that work with a prescription? I mean, I guess, doctors are used to just saying, here's the drug name, here's
Yep.
the dose. But if you are adapting it for each patient,
Yep.
do you have to go back and forth with a doctor, or as the pharmacist?
Sometimes if the physicians aren't too familiar with that, and that happens even in conventional medicine, retail chains, sometimes, pharmacists will have to go back and say, hey, I don't know if this dose is going to be right for this patient, or it interferes with something else. But usually the physicians or practitioners who refer their patients to us are familiar with it. So yeah, it's not a, but if they're not, then absolutely we'll help walk them through it if it's something new for them.
Okay. What's I've got 3 or 4 questions trying to get out of my mouth at the same time, Anna. We have a very good compounding pharmacy here in town that we use on occasion. We also deal for over, I guess, about 30 years. We have dealt with a chain pharmacy, the Kroger pharmacy here. One of the reasons we deal with them is because they know us. There's that personal relationship. And so while we appreciate our compounding pharmacy, we only go over there when there is something that is not available through the Kroger pharmacy. I think you and Tony have developed a much closer relationship with your usual clients, I guess we could say. Do we say clients or patients in this
Patients,
case?
customers, yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would you say has been the biggest change that you guys have instituted since buying the pharmacy 9 years ago?
Oh, wow.
Other than updating the website, and all that kind of thing.
And all those things, yeah, a lot.
What has changed as far as the business and the relationship?
That's a great question. Yeah, the business has changed a bit in that people have become more aware of what we do. And in these times, people are seeking out more personalized care. They don't like the one size fits all model of health. And kind of, as I mentioned earlier, what got me started in medicine is each person is unique. Their needs are unique. And I think we should treat it as such as much as we can. We like to say we're at the crossroads intersection of conventional medicine and integrative medicine. Conventional medicine has its place 100%, and integrative medicine has its place. So, and I think Tony and I are both of Greek backgrounds. All of my family, my mom, everyone lives in Greece, and Tony's family is from Greece. So we have that different worldview of health as a whole and not just a diagnosis and treatment. Greece is one of the 5 blue zones in the world where people live the longest and have the best quality of life. And so it's taking into consideration other health factors. So we've grown the pharmacy to make people aware that health is not just your diagnosis and medication. It is your social life. Do you have some deep, meaningful relationships? How is your stress level? Are you taking time for things that bring you joy? Are you incorporating not just exercise, but just movement into your everyday life? More of the blue zone things that we grew up with and just knew, but a lot of people may not have been exposed to that. And then from that, we've now started health consultations. So there are patients who can't get into their doctors, haven't been to a doctor. That started really during COVID. And we can do lab work for them and sit down with them and just take a holistic look and say, okay, these are your medications. This is your lab work. How are you feeling? Let's look at the whole picture and make a plan moving forward. So those are probably the biggest ways are offering more personalized services and letting people know more about what we do.
Now, how does that work with a PA needing to have a physician oversight? I mean, does the D pharmacy for Tony, does that provide that?
So we don't prescribe anything. So we're not, it's more of a health consultation.
The consultation. Okay. Yeah.
So it's more of, we'll make a recommendation and say, these are the medications you're on. I think you could decrease this one in half, or maybe just take this one and you don't need to take these other 2. So we're just looking more at the whole picture and making recommendations that if they would like, we'll reach out to their physician and talk with them, or they can take it back to their practitioner as well.
Okay. That makes sense. Now, we're talking about people liking the personalized service. These days, as we said, very much aware, of course, that the technology is increasing, which can put a barrier between you.
Mhm.
I find it interesting that at the exact same moment, you guys are growing in terms of the personalized community interaction, but you have also, in a very real way, taken the pharmacy from being just a local pharmacy to being, what will we say, a national pharmacy in some ways. I mean, you guys provide services in
Mhm.
some way through the internet. Am I
Yep.
getting that correct?
Well, yeah, and we can ship to almost every state. Especially, we do a lot of the higher end, higher quality supplements and vitamins, and so which is something that we learned more of. Just like the quality of your food, right? So
Mhm.
a lot of supplements and vitamins don't say what they have in them, unfortunately. So we treat it like we do our food. We want the highest quality. If you're going to spend money on your health, make sure you're getting what you're paying for. So yeah, we do those types of things. We ship supplements and vitamins. We do the health consultations, online. We ship to, some states here and there. It's the world of pharmacy, especially compounding pharmacy, independent pharmacies, is very, very regulated. And there are a lot of pharmacies who now don't provide some of the services that we provide. Because it's getting increasingly difficult with regulations. So we get a lot of phone calls from physicians out of state and say, "There's no one in my state that does this. Can you do it?" And so we'll try and help them as best we can.
And you guys can thread the regulatory needle in a sense. I mean, this is a lot of plates to keep spinning. I mean, it's because there's medical,
Yeah.
there's what we might call traditional business, and then
Mhm.
there's dealing with the increasing bureaucracy.
Mhm. And it goes back. I love what you started with, and we were kind of emailing is your values. What is important to you. So I think in anything that seems difficult, it's what is your why? Why are you doing it? And if it's important enough, you'll find a way. And we do. It's not always beautiful and seamless. It can get messy in the middle, but you keep working at it until you find a way. And again, I love what you talk about on the show is your values. And
Mhm.
I think when you keep those top of mind, it will help you. It will help. I know we were talking about the book 10x is easier than 2x, but when you start to really look at what's most important, that letting go of some things becomes easier. So you really focus
Mhm.
on what's the most important, how can we optimize that, and maybe put some other things on the back burner.
Do you have a sense that your values have evolved, or that your awareness of your values has evolved throughout
My
this process?
awareness of my values has evolved. I wouldn't say my values have changed that much,
Hmm.
but my awareness of them. And again, I don't know if it's just age. That's what I'm, chalking it up to. But I'm in a really reflective time in my life right now, and so very reflective time in my life. So yeah, I would say they've not really changed. I've just become more aware of them,
Hmm.
and also noticing that certain things have to take priority for a season of life, and then the next season of life, those other values can kind of come to the forefront. But
Right, right.
but they're always there. They're always there.
Yeah, yeah. I we had on the show a few weeks ago Joanna Penn, who is somebody that I think highly of as a writer, and she has this idea that about every 15 years there will be a major shift in life, in business. I think you were talking about every 5 years or so reevaluating.
I saw something, and I didn't read the whole article, but something about that there's some sort of life transition every 5 years. Now, it could be minor. I'm sure we have major ones about every 15 years, but yeah, it's navigating those transition points in our life.
Mm-hmm.
And your values, I think, come to the forefront when you're kind of challenged with things
Yeah.
in life. Yeah.
So with 9 years in the business, you're coming up on a decade.
Hmm.
Is this one of those inflection points for you all?
It is. I will say, as much as I said, I'm kind of at a reflective time in my life. I would say probably the business is too. Tony and I always have done everything other than practicing medicine as a PA together, and so we're at a time now where we've thought of how else can we serve, what else can we do, and we've gone through, for those who know us, especially in the Go Giver group, some trial and error, these last couple of years. And we've really found, again, honing into our values of this might make sense on paper, this might make sense logically, but to our values, to what's most important to us, it's not the best fit. So, one of those examples is, as I mentioned, the pharmacy used to be literally a home with a detached garage. And we were thinking, how can we best use this and serve our patients better and more? And so we converted it to start IV hydration therapy services for patients because, again, health is top priority for many of our patients.
And just real quickly, what is IV hydration?
Oh, great question. So it is pretty much as we would take in vitamins orally by mouth. They're infused into a bag and you just take them IV. So again, unfortunately, our food is not what it used to be. The nutritional value of it is not what it used to be, and we're deficient in a lot of our nutrients and micronutrients. So we thought of offering this service. A lot of our patients already do it, and we thought we make the bags for other practices anyway. We could do that ourselves. So as we were going through that, we realized, that's not our best use of our time, talent, skills. It's another business model. Yes, it's medical, but it's a completely different business model than what we currently do. And so we thought the best thing is to partner with someone else or lease it out to someone else who does those practices already, who loves it, who's invested in it. And we would refer our patients to them. They would refer our patients to us. And that way, both sides do what they're best at and serve our patients better. So it's not always looking at it from a financial gain, because financially would make much more sense, right, on paper for us to do it. But the mental real estate, the time investment from it would detract from what we're doing at the pharmacy. And like you said, there's only so much we can do. Our family is number one. And so for this season in our lives, partnering with someone else who does it is the best fit.
Indeed, indeed. In fact, it happens just this morning. I was listening to another podcast by a writer I follow, Maddie Dalrymple. She does the Indie Author podcast. And she had a guest on. I wish I could remember who it was so I could give proper credit. But she was talking about this very thing from a different standpoint. And she was evaluating activities that she was involved in by asking 3 questions. Is it fun? How much energy does it take? And is it making me money? And if the answer to all 3 of those things was no, then it needed to go.
I love that.
Yeah. So you got to have some
framework. Those are great questions.
there.
That's a great framework to think through. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the show notes, I will properly credit the woman who mentioned that. In fact, speaking of show notes, for folks who are on here with us visually, I did want to share with you how to connect with Anna. I've got a QR code up on the screen to be able to get to Nora Apothecary. And that is just noraapothecary.com. So you can, it'll be linked in the show notes. I'm not going to try to spell it out loud. It's just too long. But on the other hand, it's easy to say Nora Apothecary. And you told me once, Anna, where the Nora part comes from. I think it was the part of Indianapolis.
Yeah, I think it was just they named it that because that's where the neighborhood of the home was Nora, and they just named it Nora Apothecary. Yeah.
Okay, so it wasn't named after somebody; it was named after a place. And then I've got the same picture because I wasn't moving fast enough. I should have had the Nora Apothecary logo on that QR code. But here is Anna's LinkedIn, and as usual, LinkedIn addresses are just a little too long to say out loud, but you can look her up if you can spell Kantzavelos. And I will put the link in the show notes as well. Anna and Tony are just great resources, and they're happy to talk with people about what's going on with them. So as we get ready to wrap up here, Anna, I always like to close, and if you're a regular listener, and I think you have listened to a few episodes, you know this question's coming, that if there was something that you wish that I had asked that I didn't, what would it be, and what would your answer be?
Probably, well, I kind of want to ask just questions back because I love hearing other people's stories, but there isn't really one because you're just so wonderful at what you do. And I just have to say, I just commend you for the person you are, for the father you are, for the husband you are. I mean, I don't know that enough people know that about you and what you do and how you show up despite just life, what life that you said, life throws you curveballs. Probably just, what we had kind of talked through in the back of just values and how we are shaped by them probably is what comes to mind for the forefront of me. I mean, it's a very reflective time in my life, and you just, as a parent, trying to be very intentional with how you raise your children and try and just be more self-aware and how your values and your experiences shape who you are. But we really kind of covered that, so I thank you.
Yeah, and it strikes me about how business is a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's certainly not the only thing. I mean, we wind up talking about business a lot on this show, but people who are focused on business and nothing else,
Yeah,
why?
I know.
So I just
Using business
appreciate.
as part of service, using business
Yeah,
just to serve others. It's both. It's serving your own life and your values, and to serve one another. I think we're all here to learn from and to serve one another. That's the purpose of life. So
exactly.
if we can do that in our businesses, it's a win.
Yeah. It's. I think here's what I'm struggling with right now. Here, just the idea. Some people will draw a distinction. There's business, and then there's the rest of life. But when you're focused on service, and as our friend Bob Burg says, it's 3 or 4 related things here. Yes, you need to ask about the money. It's a great question. It's just not a great first question.
Absolutely.
And that success, however you define it, is the echo. It's like thunder to lightning. And so the lightning, the focus should be on serving other people. It's what somebody that we all know, and I can't pull out who it is now, points out as enlightened self-interest. And so it really is. I know it's a cliche way to put it, but it really is a win-win, and it's a much more satisfying way to live life.
Yeah.
Well, Anna, it is an honor to know you. I'm very pleased to have you on the show this week, and thank you so much for coming on. And folks, you don't know this, but Anna was very flexible in how we did this. We were thinking that we would record, and she was able to come on here live. Just that adaptability.
You are adaptable.
I think it's what we all do, and I'm not sure people value that in themselves all that much, because from the inside, it can feel like simply managing chaos. But that's what we do.
That's what we do.
Yeah. Well, don't go away. I'm going to put you in the green room for just a second, so
thank
I can
you, Don. Appreciate you.
And folks, as we wrap up this episode of the Alignment Show, just a reminder: you can go to confidencecultivators.com to be able to get the show notes, to follow the links that we've talked about. Find out what's going on next week. I'm pulling up my calendar right now to verify, because we don't want to depend on my memory. Let's see, today's the 23rd. So on March the 1st, we will have Matthew Brackett on. I'm just getting to know Matthew, but he is one of the folks that Noemi Barris has brought to us. We've mentioned Noemi several times on this show. Looking forward to that conversation. We're not quite sure where we'll be next Friday. We might be here in this room, might be back in our usual studio, but in any case, if nothing gets in our way, then we will look forward to joining you once again. And Jeff West still with us. Thank you very much, Jeff. He says, excellent episode for your first anniversary of the show. I just really appreciate all the support from the community, several regular listeners, viewers. Hope that these podcasts will serve people for many years to come. And so we will look forward to next week. Remember, we are here to help you to live your values so that you can value your life. And we will see you next week. That's it for this week's episode of The Alignment Show. What has it inspired you to do in your own life? Whatever it is, take action now and take the first step. It will help you to talk with a friend about what you're thinking. Share confidencecultivators.com to spread the goodness. And remember to live your values and value your life. We will see you next week on The Alignment Show.